Anybody ever do like stuff that's crazy in life? Like drive to Nashville, Tennessee in one day and back. And for the first time ever hauling a trailer, pull it all the way back from Nashville. That was interesting. We talked last week a little bit about trust and a little bit about different things. And we had Justin on. You missed this, B. Justin was on a hand truck, and so was my wife. We found out Justin trusts me more. I don't know if that's because he knows me less. Who knows? I don't know. Maybe he knew the hand truck was okay. But, we've been talking about, uncertain seas in our life. It seems like, for the past couple of years, everything's been uncertain. And one of the things that I found in my life is it's never, you ask for something that's impossible in the mornings. I apologize. But, it's always sometimes the uncertain seas that make me question, that challenge me, that make me grow, if you will. I think it was Bruce Lee. Most pastors won't quote Bruce Lee, I promise you. But Bruce Lee said, the pain will leave you when it's finished teaching you. And he was a philosophy major, too. Most people don't know that. But anyway, sometimes I found out that I do learn more from pain than anything else. Yeah, go ahead and set that bad boy up for me. See, I'm lazy. Hey, Justin, do all the work, and I'll hold the mic while you do it. Thank you so much. Not yet. not yet. Not yet. We're just going to hold on to that for a minute. But sometimes it's the unexpected conflicts in my life. Anyone like conflict? How many love conflict? Nobody likes confrontation or conflict? Really? Really? Man, I'm sorry. I really have nothing else to say now. I'm joking. We're done. No, most of us don't enjoy conflict, especially the ones that we didn't expect or the unexpected things in a conflict. Sometimes I even can be prepared for certain things coming in my life. You get prepared for certain kind of battles in your life. Like, I'm used to this happening, so I've got a plan, and I know how to come against this. We get used to the normal battles, those first world battles, like the printer won't work this morning. Or my cell phone. I don't have. You want to see a Jackson meltdown? Somewhere between here and Tennessee, we have no internet service on our phones. I'm not sure what that span's called. I can tell you what I thought it was. I was pretty sure we were driving through, and I shouldn't stop, just keep going according to some country songs. But and Winston Churchill, right? So anyway, there's always those things that we're kind of prepared for, that we have a plan for. They're kind of expected. Even the conflicts, we kind of expect them. Anyone ever fuss with your wife? I mean, no one raise your hand. It's only me, right? It's only me. Three of us. It's only me. So anyway. But sometimes we got a plan for that. We got a plan for that, right? You have a plan for arguing with your wife? We got to talk. We got to talk. Yeah, we got to talk. That's what he does. You got a plan? Usually my plan is just avoid the conflict until I have no choice but to engage it. Avoid it till I have to engage. She's back there. Good. Sometimes it's like a chihuahua, right? It's like, it's all you, okay. And you can ignore it for so long, and all of a sudden it's like, no more. You ever get there? You're like me, aren't you? It's like, and then also, boom. All right, but we have plans for those kind of expected, if you will, conflicts, the funny kind of conflicts when you're not in the middle of it. But the truth is, we don't necessarily have a plan for certain battles, the ones that were the curveball. You've sang about it all morning long. The ones that were the curveball, the ones with that unexpected hook where you expected to cross and it came out of a different angle, and now you're hit. I want to look at this scripture in 1 Samuel 17, and actually we're going to read the one Justin put up for us because I forgot to add one. The Philistines now mustered their army for battle and camped between, some places, they did, close to Judah. I would let our associate pastor show you how well he's been working on his Hebrew enunciations, but I don't have time. So we're going to say they mustered close to Judah, all right? Mustered means what? They pulled it all, right? They gather together. If you got an enemy mustering against you, even the military, even a lot of your paramilitary organizations, they still muster every morning. That 4:30 a.m. workout, that's a muster. You get up, you bring it together, and you head out. So they muster. They brought what they had together in this place. You ever feel like the enemy's mustering against you? Like you see something happening on a hill away, and the enemy's coming together against you? Let's flip up now. Next verse. Saul countered. We live right here. I live right here. I see the enemy mustered, and I counter. And I know my counter. These are the things that I have planned for, right? Because I'm old now. You know, once I was young, now I'm old. Everything, righteous forsaken, God to see bacon bread. But anyway, I'm old now, so I have some plans. I do have some standby plans for certain battles in my life. I do have standbys that I can go to. And honestly, sometimes even in people's life, I have standby advice because I've seen people go through it before. I have standby prayers, and I'm not saying that they're any less heartfelt, but I know where they're at, and I know what's happening, and I kind of, they call like medicine practice for a reason. A lot of it's pattern recognition. It's not that these guys it's not that they're super geniuses. They did graduate med school, so they're smarter than the average. But the truth is this, a lot of what they do is pattern recognition. Do you think day one in my career, I could say, oh yeah, I know what's wrong with that gait pattern. That's a weak, they've got weak glutes because they got to stay. No, it's seeing it time after time after time. So we develop this. We develop counters. Like if you jab at me, I'm going to pop out the side and throw a cross or a hook or over. I'm going to do something to the side, right? Okay, so I have a counter planned. So Saul did what? He gathered. Same thing. All right, you're going to gather there. I'm going to gather right here on my hill, and I'm going to stand my ground. So everything looks good so far. So sometimes you're staring face to face with the enemy, and that feels comfortable because at least you know what you're looking at, right? And we're used to seeing it this way. We know how this is supposed to play out. We know the battles we're supposed to face as a family of 4, right? Or 3. Y'all got to have another one. Anyway, as a family of, don't you think? They need one more. As a family of 4 or 3, I think it's 3.5, whatever, family of whatever, right? We know the battles we're supposed to face. As a married couple, we know the battles we're supposed to face because we can see the enemy gather just like he always has. Well, then we kind of counter. We kind of gather our forces on the same hill. But then something unexpected happens, right? Let's turn this verse up. Pop up one more. So the Philistines and the Israelites faced each other on opposite hills, probably sticking their tongues out, waving some archer fingers around. I don't know. With the valley between them. Yeah. Next verse. Sometimes you feel like you got a division between you and your enemy and you still feel safe. Because for them to come towards you, they'd have to take the low ground. You always want high ground, right? Always want high ground. Anyway, then Goliath, a Philistine champion from Gath. Just sounds bad. Came out of the Philistine ranks to face the forces of Israel. He was over 9 feet tall. Now you're going to hear contradiction on that as far as the way that Hebrews translated. Most people still say 9. Some say like 6.75. Either way, he's a big dude. All right. Next verse. He wore a bronze helmet. I want you to pay attention to the details here, though. We know that he was 9 feet tall, somewhere between 7 and 9 probably. Okay, he wore a bronze helmet, and his bronze coat of mail weighed 125 pounds. Coat of mail is what he's wearing around his chest to protect him. If you throw a spear, you throw anything else. That weighs 125 pounds. So he's got a 125 pound, if you will, chest plate on. Next verse. He also wore bronze leg armor. And he carried a bronze javelin on his shoulder. Are you seeing something that looks kind of impressive? All right, next verse. The shaft of his spear was as heavy and thick as a weaver's beam, tipped with an iron spearhead that weighed 15 pounds. His armor bearer walked ahead of him, carrying a shield. All right, next verse. Goliath stood and shouted a taunt. Isn't it funny how your enemy wants to taunt you? Isn't it funny also how there's always these details of how big the enemy looks? Goliath stood and shouted a taunt across to the Israelites. Why are you all coming out to fight, he called. I am the Philistine champion, but you are only the servants of Saul. Choose one man to come down here and fight me. Whoa, unexpected. This isn't how it's supposed to play out. Next verse, 9. If he kills me, then we will be your slaves. But if I kill him, you'll be our slaves. I defy the armies of Israel today. Send me a man who will fight me. Next verse. When Saul and the Israelites heard this, they were terrified and deeply shaken. Stay right there. Just keep that verse up for me. Isn't it funny that this is exactly where we end up so many times, though? Because the devil will get you in the details. Well, did you hear all the details about how big the enemy was? And that's what the enemy wants you to know, is how big I am, how impressive I am, and how scary I should be to you. I mean, maybe I'm the only one that's ever, faced anything I didn't expect. But there's been a lot of unexpected battles in my life that I didn't expect were coming my way when they came. And in those moments, the enemy looks big. The enemy looks scary. It looks powerful. This guy's carrying 125 pounds to protect him. He's got a guy carrying a shield. He's got this big javelin, spear. He's got all this stuff. And then he throws a curveball. Send me one man to fight me. You ever feel like the rules change right when you're in the middle of a fight? The way you thought something was supposed to play out is not the way it's playing out. The way you predetermined it in your head is not the way it's playing out for you right now. And there's this big giant in front of you that looks so impressive. Sometimes in my life there's a big giant that is kind of impressive. And it kind of makes me wonder, sometimes I am shaken. And I know I grew up, well, we won't talk about when I grew up, but let's just say there were a lot of no fear signs around, and then came the ain't scared signs, and, I'm not joking. They were there on the back of everybody's trucks. Yeah, they were there. But if you've lived life for long and you can say that you've never been terrified or deeply shaken, you might be lying to yourself. And if you haven't been, you're going to be. There's going to be some things coming that's going to terrify you. They're going to shake you. And, as a grown man, people like to say, well, I'm not scared of anything. That's your pride talking. You need to check yourself. Trust me, I still have to check for pride quite often. And, I'm, an impressive 5'6". So, but I still have to check for that pride because it sneaks in. You think you're bigger than you are. But the thing is this, guys. We start looking at us, we start looking at how big the enemy really is. And there's some things that do come at us, although we didn't think they would, that are bigger than us. And when we realize they're bigger than us and that we don't have the resources, and you were always taught, God won't put more on you than you can bear. That's a scripture yanked out of context that's talking about temptation. What he will put on you is everything that you have to have him help you carry. Because if I could carry everything he put on me, I would not need Jesus to help me. But I can't. And I really want to build, this is so off subject, but I want to build a place that recognizes who Jesus is. The power that Jesus had, and see him for who he is. That one that was willing to accept all the wrath of God so that I didn't have to. And a God that loved me so much he would pour that wrath out on his own son. I can't imagine. To take the wrath for all sin. To take the judgment, the punishment for everything, the weight of it all. Man, that must have been a big-looking giant, right? Anyway, but I get stuck here many times in a counter, and I'm scared, and I'm shaken, and I don't know what to do. Everybody wants to be David in this story. I'm going to be honest with you, we don't have a lot of Davids. We have a lot of Eliabs. We have a lot of people that really look at life the same way, like, this is scary. This isn't what we thought was coming, and I don't know what's next. And we're going to kind of hide and hang out. Let's look forward in the scripture. Let's look at 1 Samuel 17, 32 through 37 in the NLT. Now, I want you to realize these guys are scared. They're hiding. And all of a sudden, there's these guys that come, back and forth. Maybe David on this one, right? Bringing brothers food. Jesse had sent to the youngest out. Said, now, David would go back and forth in battle line anyway. But anyway, said, take some food to your brothers. Check on them. Let me know how they're doing. So David's doing a delivery run, if you will, which is all any of us can ever hope to be for God's a delivery man, right? Because we don't hold the power. We don't hold the food. We don't hold the sustenance. We hold nothing but the delivery power to get this to somebody. Anyway, so David walks up, and he's been through this whole story of he has heard all this going on, and he has seen, he's seen people run from this guy. He's seen people hide. His brothers that were bigger than him, that Saul, when they walked up and saw Saul, when Saul was being replaced and Samuel walks up, he saw guys he would have chose because they were bigger, they were stronger. So this is one of those guys, Eliab, and some of his other brothers are there. And he sees them hide from this Philistine. And he sees them back down and cower because it was something they didn't expect. It was an unexpected conflict. And sometimes an unexpected conflict makes the bravest man hide because you have no plan. You don't even know what you're facing. You don't know what's next. And how many like to know what's next? People like plans, right? Yeah, people like plans. They'd like to know, how's this play out? And, my wife's one of those people. How does this play out? We just keep playing the game. I don't know. Jesus. But how does this all play out? I don't know. But I can tell you this, they were hiding. And sometimes, how many of you have fights you'd like to hide from? And people are like, no, I don't have those. I don't hide from a fight. How many of you sometimes it's hard to get up in the morning because everything's happening that day? Or the things you're expecting that could happen that day? We do carry a lot of needless pain of projecting what we think will happen in the future, which may never happen, but it's a whole other thing. So all of a sudden, these guys are scared, and they have a right to be. I'm not telling you that you don't have a right to be scared of some of the fights in your life. If I did, I'd be lying. I mean, I have friends that have died with cancer. That were my age. We have a friend that just passed away, the other week over a surgery, and I don't know what went wrong, but yeah, unexpected, right? And I wouldn't tell you not to be scared of some of the things you look at, but I do want you to do one thing, because don't judge yourself too harshly, because these guys were impressed, but so was what they were fighting. But you have this kid, if you will, that walks up and says, don't worry about this Philistine. And you ever have those people in your life that, you're going through one of the hardest times in your life, and you're like, don't worry. Don't worry, it's okay. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about that cancer diagnosis. Don't worry that your son's not talking. Don't worry that you don't know how to deal with grief and you just lost a child. Don't worry that they told you that not to do much, that that vessel in your head could rupture and you could die any moment. Get your affairs in order. You might want a will. Don't worry. Don't worry. Don't worry there's someone you love that's hurting, worse than you've ever seen them hurt. Don't worry about this Philistine. David told Saul, I'll go fight him. Any of you ever volunteered to fight a giant battle? Most of us don't. Let's flip up a verse. Don't be ridiculous, Saul replied. There's no way you can fight this Philistine and possibly win. You're only a boy, and he's been a man of war since his youth. Don't be ridiculous. I will be honest with you. I am looking for some ridiculous Christians. We need some people that will fight the giant. We need some people that will say, I can do it. I can. I'll fight him. Isn't this funny that anything you take on, you ever hear these things in life when you're trying to say, hey, let's take a step of faith. Don't be ridiculous. Don't be ridiculous. You want to build a church where you just preach Jesus? Don't be ridiculous. You want to quit with all the traditions and telling people every move to make and trust Jesus, this Jesus that we say that was there at the beginning, that without him there was nothing made. And you want me to trust this Jesus to help people live their lives without me telling them? Without me controlling their life? You want to preach that kind of Jesus? Don't be ridiculous. You want to preach a Jesus that can still heal a drug addict? Don't be ridiculous. You want to preach a Jesus that can still sustain things that people say there's no money behind? Don't be ridiculous. You want to preach a Jesus that can still melt away hate? Don't be ridiculous. You want to preach a Jesus that welcomes anybody in the door? Don't be ridiculous. There's no way you can fight this Philistine. This is exactly what the enemy wants to tell you. There's no way you can fight this battle. There's no way you could possibly win. There's something in our lives today that the devil's telling us that there's no way you can possibly win. If there's not one of those things in your life, then you need to pick up some fights. You need to take some steps forward in your faith. But a lot of us are fighting things that we're scared of. And then we hear people shouting from the corners, there's no way you could possibly win. Might as well not even fight, right? You're only a boy. People say you're only this. Man, at the core, I'm still only a boy from Sawmills. Only. Sometimes in my head when I see the big giants and wonder, what have I done? What have I got myself into? Anybody ever think those questions? What have I done now? There's no way you could possibly win. You're only this. And that enemy you're facing, oh man, he's been a man of war since his youth. And when I look at that, I'm like, he's been a man since he was a boy. I mean, come on. He was bad, right? But he's been a man. I promise I will never do that again. But he's been a man and a man of war since his youth. Don't be ridiculous. Now I've got people singing songs. I apologize. Oh, Lord, I apologize. Next verse. But David persisted. How many of you persisted? Oh, let me fight the battle, Lord. He said, I've been taking care of my father's sheep and goats. Now that's a qualifying statement. Now is that not a qualifying statement? Because sometimes when people say, how do you want to build a church like that in Caldwell County? That's ridiculous. Well, I've been taking care of my father's sheep and goats, and that's about my qualifying statement. I told you, boy from Psalmist. I've been taking care of some sheep and goats. And he said, when a lion or bear comes to steal a lamb from the flock, let's roll on up. I go after it. Oh, God, give us some people that will go after it. We need some Christians that will go after it. When something's coming against the sheep, go after it. When you see your brother's hurting and you see an enemy kind of coming after him, go after it. Thank you for attacking some of my enemies with prayer. I know you have. I felt it. I felt some of the anger melt away. I felt some of the hatred melt away. I felt it because somebody went after it. Somebody went after it. I go after it with a club. Take your word with you. You know, take your weapon with you. I go after it with a club, and I rescue the lamb. God, we need churches that will rescue the lamb. We need people that will snatch it from its mouth. If the animal turns on me, all right, right here, with my inflection, when I'm reading this, is if this animal, if this battle, if it's stupid enough to turn on me, I catch it by the jaw and club it to death. We didn't go with King James because I wanted to, it says caught it by the beard. I really wanted to use you for that example, but I didn't do it. God convicted me, so we went with this one. If the animal turns on me, I catch it by the jaw and club it to death. 36. I have done this to both lions. Oh my. And I'll do it to this pagan Philistine too, for he has defied the armies of the living God. 37. The Lord who rescued me from the claws of the lion and the bear will rescue me from this Philistine. Saul finally consented. All right, go ahead, he said, and may the Lord be with you. You're going to need some help. All right, let's end there. Let's talk just for a second about David and the other soldiers. What was the difference? Because sometimes unexpected conflict does make me want to hide just like the other soldiers were doing. Why could David come in with confidence in an unexpected conflict? He viewed that conflict as an opportunity, it looked like, not just a challenge. So let's see, I'm going to need two people. All right, you'll be one of my lovely assistants. No, but actually, because I don't know who I'm choosing, you will have to go over there. Just go over there. Don't take my ladder. This is my ladder. You get a chair. You don't see an act of faith. This is an act of faith. Because all the things in the world would tell you, this chair, I've seen one used before, which is kind of the same thing David's saying, right? I've seen it done before. I've seen it happen before. Do you know the amount of faith you put when you walk in and sit down on one of these chairs? You don't know where they came from. You don't know who made them. You have no clue. Yet you stand on it. And that's the same thing in life a lot of times is the devil wants you to focus on the details that there might be a loose screw in that chair. Amen. Yes. There might be a loose screw in this. I don't even know where they were manufactured. I don't know if it's China, U.S. I don't know, but I'll still walk in and sit on it. And this man's going to do something today that he has no idea where this came from either. So step up there. Just step up and stand. Stand on it. Stand on it.
Because I got to clean them.
Stay right there. Stay right there. Good. See that act of faith? Now that's faith because he has no idea what he's standing on. But that's sometimes the exact way that life is you have no idea what you're standing on. But you can be faithful, right? Now, if I told you that I had came in the other night with a hacksaw, but you're still standing. All right, stay right there. Stay right there. You're Goliath. You're scary, okay? Yeah. You're Goliath. All right, now I need somebody that doesn't mind getting even a little higher up. Everybody's looking at you, Amber. Everybody's looking. All right, I hope no one comes flying out this door really soon. All right, I want you to climb up behind him, right there. Just climb up and stand till you're taller than Goliath.
She's taller.
No, go one more. Do you have faith in that?
All right, you comfortable? All right. Okay, stay right there. Stay right there. Because here's the thing: is if I'm the soldiers, is God still bigger? Yeah, God's still bigger. But I'm in the middle of something right now I didn't expect. And if I look up, all I see is this impressive masked giant in front of me. So from this vantage point, all I see. Wait, did you catch that? From this vantage point, all I see is the giant. That's all I see. And sometimes things happen in my life, and all I see from this vantage point is the problem. All I see is the issue, and it's so big. And I want to tell people around me, because I want to be that faithful guy that says, oh, it's not a problem. Oh, it's big. And all I see is this. This problem's carrying 125 pounds around like nothing. It's got all these weapons. As a matter of fact, it has somebody carrying a shield in front of me, so I can't even get to him if I really wanted to, hardly. So I got a padded giant enemy in front of me that all I see is my problem. All I see is the things that the enemy's whispering at me. That's all I see. From this vantage point, all I see is a giant. And from this vantage point, he does look about 10 feet tall. I'm sure he's still not. He's probably now, 6'2". Anyway. He's about as tall as I am. He's actually a little taller, about 3 inches, I think. So he's a solid, impressive 5'8". You just called me 5'5". Anyway, solid 5'8". But anyway, but this is where I see it. Do you know why they were hiding? Because they were scared of this. And there's things in your life you have a right to be scared of if it's all you're looking at, if it's all you're seeing. If that's all you look and see, you have a right to be scared. You have a right to be shaken. You have a right to be terrified sometimes because this giant is big. It never said this giant wasn't big. It never said this giant couldn't have killed one of those other guys easily. It never said that. He probably could have. He's probably more well-trained than the rest of them. And that's all I see. You know the difference when David walked in? There's a difference. Hey, Brandon, just you abandon your station too. Come up here. Now we got this king, future king walking up, right? Good, just stay right there. All right, what do you see? I see a man on a chair, and I see something bigger behind him. This is sometimes the outsider's view, and this isn't even in the message. But it's the outsider's view of, be faithful, guys, be faithful. But it's that outsider's view that is so important. Sometimes when somebody around you is saying something, listen, because they might be seeing something you can't see while you're in it. It's so hard to see it when you're in it. But the outsider's view is important. So what I have to do? You know what else David did? Is David did this. Have a seat. So from the outside point, David comes in from an outside point, and he sees something. But you know how he sees it? Everybody's like, well, he was just an outsider. No. David did something else too. He already had a different vantage point anyway. Because when David comes in, he elevates his vantage point. My God, I wish they'd elevate their vantage point. I wish they'd see past the giant. I wish they would realize that when you stand on what God's already done, they didn't get it, man, because they're still in the chairs. The truth is this. If you'll stand in your life on what God's already done, and you begin to see the God that's bigger than the giant behind it, oh, my. Because, see, when I stand on the vantage point right now, sometimes I've been facing battles, some of you know. And all of a sudden, I begin to stand on the vantage point of, Baker, they said you could die. I'm alive, bro. I couldn't talk hardly. I'm preaching, man. I lost a kid, and God carried me through the grief. I had another son who wondered, why'd you bring me back here, man? Because this son can't even talk. Well, can you touch him? And the same God that gave that son words, the same God that saved my soul way back when I was 8 years old at Harris Chapel, all that time, all those broken moments that I'm sitting thinking, God, is it even worth living anymore? Are you even there? All those moments that God brought me through, I know what He can do. So when I see this giant in front of me, all of a sudden the giant looks a little smaller. We look like we're almost on level playing field. And as a matter of fact, what's behind him is even bigger than he is. If you'll just change your vantage point. All right, y'all get down. You look silly. If you just change your vantage point, will you start standing on what God, we got some chairs to clean, right? But if you'll start standing on what God has done in your life, how many has God done something for? Is it just me? I mean, am I the only one that's ever seen a miracle of God? Am I? Thank you. I'm glad there's one. So, I mean, the truth is this, guys. If you'll stand on what you know God has done, those giants begin to look a little smaller. That was the difference, was the vantage point. I pray this week for all those things that you're really fighting that I don't even know about. I don't know the battles in everybody's lives. I wish I did, but I don't. What I'm praying is that God help you elevate your vantage point, that you begin to see past the giant to the God, that we begin to refocus on Him. Because if I'm going to have any confidence in uncertain conflict, it comes from going with something I do know, from knowing what God has done, and that He's capable of doing it again. Because I'm going to be honest with you. Can we break it down and be real honest? Can we? Because I don't know, we're going to be honest enough. You might not want to post this one. I don't know. My faith doesn't just count on my Bible. My faith doesn't just stand there. I'm not saying it's not important. Please don't misquote me on this, okay? But it's not just that. It's not just because I go to church. It's not just because Mama made me go in the khakis and the polo shirt when I was a kid. I know, you miss khakis, don't you, bro? And polo shirts, man. It was every Sunday night, Wednesday. Where I went to church, it was Saturday. We were there all the time. But that's not what my faith is in, because I've seen a lot of that stuff fail me. I've seen a lot of what I was taught was important. It's not necessarily all that important. But you know why I believe? You know why I believe? Because I've seen me change. I've seen God do things in my life that I know were not me. I've seen God touch in situations that I had no power to change. I've seen Him turn my heart from hateful to forgiving. I've seen Him give me power when I was weak. I've seen Him when He didn't move the way I wanted Him to move, carry me. That's why I believe. It's because I know what He can do, and I know what He has done. And that's what I want for you this week, is I really want you to look at, start focusing on the God in the situation, not just the giant. I want you to look over his head, past his shoulder, wherever you have to get. Change your vantage point in the situation. Sometimes one of the most important things you can do, this is one of my plans. We started out talking about, silly stuff like, spouse fights. And when I do best with a spouse fight is when we get started and I disengage. I take a step back and I look at what's really important. But from what you're fighting today, I want you to take just a moment to disengage. Step back. Look at it. Look for God in the situation. You just might be surprised at what you thought was an unexpected conflict is really God's catapult into your purpose. Because everything we talked about here today was the beginning of one of the greatest stories we know, right? But what led there was not just because David was bad. It was because he thought different. As a matter of fact, he wasn't that impressive at this time. It was because he thought different, because he saw different. And guys, if you'll see things different, because what I have found out in my life, what defines me in uncertain situations is what I see and how I respond. And when I'm scared, when I'm shaken, I pray that God always help me and you look for him in the situation. You know, David wasn't the only one that thought it was important to see Jesus. Well, Zacchaeus, right? Or Zacchaeus, if you grew up in the South, right? Thought it was worth climbing up to change his vantage point so he could see Jesus. I pray this week that whatever it takes, you change your vantage point to see Jesus in the situation you're in right now. I know not all situations are chosen or perfect, but I know in all situations, Jesus is present. Let's stand. Let's kind of pray together, guys. Father, as we come before you, we thank you and praise you for those that have gathered, Lord. Those that are still sick and fighting different things, God, we pray for those that you move in their hearts and their lives. And Lord, I do not know each and every individual battle, even in this gathering. But God, whatever it is, I pray that you help us change our vantage point, that we not just see the giant or the challenge, but God, that we see you in the situation. Help us change our perspective, our vantage point. Because God, if I can see you and I can elevate myself on what you have done, it lifts me to a point that I can see you and let you have your will in the situation. Help us not focus on the problems, but God, help us focus on the purpose. Father, I ask that you have your will in our lives, that you lead us, that you guide us. And Father, we thank you so much for your presence in this place today. God, I pray that you touch the people, move in their hearts, move in their lives, give them courage, give them confidence in uncertain times. In Jesus' name.